Okay, hello. My name's Evan Sinisek. This is my recording demo for the Info 6044 Game Engine Frameworks Project 1. The main purpose of this project was to show implementation of different patterns and techniques that we've learned in class. So I decided to take the Canon midterm from physics and configuration and modify what I did a bit to incorporate the abstract builder or abstract factory and builder to making the Canon shots a bit more refined. So just to quickly show, nothing new was built except for the main. Loads up. We can move the camera around with WASD, move the Canon itself with arrow keys. 1, 2, 3, 4, fired 4 different kinds of Canon shots. So initially, what I did was I just had these functions in main to add the Canon shot and make a mesh that we then just kept track of in vectors in main, but that also meant that we had to include every single kind of bullet that we were firing. So now instead of that, we just have the factory. A lot of this stuff is the same that I've been using for graphics and other physics stuff. The particle world and base particle class from physics is stuff that we've been working on with James Lucas. Otherwise, and this can even get extended to some configuration stuff, reading the properties of a new Canon shot type from the configuration file. But basically, in main, I would have to individually update each mesh to the Canon shot as well, because I was just keeping track of them individually. I've also changed that so that just every kind of Canon shot just has a mesh pointer that gets made when it gets called somewhere. I'm trying to remember where now. Might be, I might have put it on the key press. Anyways, then updates the mesh position, and you can retrieve the mesh pointer whenever you need. So don't have to keep track like this anymore. And if the shot is no longer alive, we can remove the particle from the world and erase it from the list of shots and meshes, because this is still the only way that I know how to draw the meshes in main. I think we're getting to a point where we're making it its own, the draw stuff its own class, but this just loads the models from the file and stores the locations so that we can access them as often as we need. This is all the camera control stuff. This is the Canon control stuff. That's not important for this class, so I'm not going to go over it. What is important is this. So as I said before, I had this function that would add the Canon, and we had to pass in all this information and keep track of everything in main. So that's now changed so that after we calculate the velocity, we then pass it in. We make a new pointer as the base cannon shot, and then we get the. I also made the factory a singleton so that there's only ever one instance of it. So we get the factory and we ask it to make the shot depending on which key is pressed, and we pass in the information it needs. So if it's a bullet, it also builds everything about the bullet. Pass in its position, its initial velocity. Some of the cannon shots needed some information from the config, so I just passed in a reference to it so those things could access it, and the string name for the bunny model so that when it makes the mesh, and then after it makes that, then we add the particle and we get the mesh and add it to the meshes to draw. And then that's the same thing for each one. Mouse is just for that. So maybe probably should have made an interface. Don't think I needed to. This works. So like I said, made the cannon shot factory a singleton. So here's our static reference to it and our static get factory. And we just have make this cannon shot. So the singleton part, use the same logic that we did in class for one of the factories in, I think, basic classes was the project that we were doing it in. But basically, if the pointer is null, make it, otherwise just return it. And then in the actual factory itself, set some default values just in case something breaks, but otherwise we pull in everything we need when we call the make the cannon shot. So this shot is just a pointer to the base C cannon shot. We make it a new type of whatever type it is, set all its specific values. So we should pass in size. We should pass in size rather than do this. But anyways, so the bullet has this information, the cannonball has this information, laser has some extra information for its death conditions. It's not just touching the ground, it actually has a distance from the cannon. Otherwise, set all its specific information, make the mesh, and then return the pointer. Same thing for all of them. And if we try to pass in a value that doesn't exist, return null. So let's make a new type of shot. So I went ahead and made this ahead of time. Thinking that, take the idea from the second physics project of the fireworks. Let's add at least the start of a new firework shot. So our virtual destructor integrate fireworks, instead of being instead of dying when they touch the ground, they'll have a time limit until they die, but they'll also die if they happen to touch the ground. So we initialize our new values for the firework. So let's add it to the factory. So we're going to start by making our shot a new firework. Firework shot. And we need the mass, which typically we would get from the configuration. I'll just pass it in some constants for now. Position comes from the make call. Stage, if we're going to have additional things. And let's say it'll die after 5 seconds. So, just like all the other cannon shots, we have to set all of the values. Again, I'm not modifying the config file just for time. I believe most of them have an acceleration -9.8. This would be most similar to the laser, so which is -3.2. So let's what is the laser damping? Oh, it just has very little mass, that's right. We'll try this, see how it looks. And now for the fireworks specific. Nothing else actually changes. Since we set the time in the constructor. Actually, probably should have done that for the energy ball now that I think about it. Set its type to 5. Not that we're using that at the moment. Let's make it a nice... how about just red? Pure red. Color, scale. This, let's see, bullet 7, 6, 8, 12, 20. Let's make it 10. Let's make the scale 10. Position. Color, and return the shot. So, huge change. Just added a whole brand new firework. And are these not? I guess those aren't. If W key 5. So I have to calculate the velocity. Except that let's say 15, 10, why not? everything about it to the factory. Except it's a firework. Position, velocity, model, add it to the world. And now we have a brand new cannon shot. And all that should build is the factory and the main. Main has some warnings for double to float conversions and cannon shot. I did build it before with this in it, otherwise this would have built as well, but obviously didn't affect cannon shot, didn't affect particle, didn't affect particle world, didn't affect any of the shaders or mesh stuff, even though it's all using that. But we just added a whole new thing. I didn't have to rebuild everything. I can't tell if that was 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it disappears. I don't fully understand the pimple stuff other than that you use pointers so that when you like change the implementation of stuff, it doesn't affect the rest of the application. I tried to do that with the factory so that like when we add a new shot, it doesn't affect anything. The only thing that this should affect is anything that includes the factory. So like if we had a turret or a battleship class and we needed, whenever we need to make a shot, it just calls the factory and makes the shot for that thing. So that would have to include the factory, but then that should be the only thing that's affected. So we're never gonna have laser included in everything, right? We'll just have the factory. So let's say I do make a change to the firework. There, I made a new line in it. I think the cannon factory builds, the firework builds, and I don't know where it went because it finished too fast. Let's see the build order. So yeah, the factory built and the firework rebuilt, but it didn't affect any of the other shots. I don't know. I was just focusing on the abstract factory and builder, and then added the singleton stuff to the factory because it was pretty easy, pretty simple to do. Anyways, thank you for your time. Have a good day. Bye.